6 months. That's how long the M4 Mac Mini has been sitting on this desk, humming along, powering everything I do. And if you're like me, you remember the launch. The noise. The benchmarks. The endless hot takes calling it everything from overkill to the best value in computing, period. I bought into the hype. We all did. Because a Mac Mini isn't just a computer, it's a promise. The promise of desktop-class performance without the massive tower, without the ear-shattering fans, and crucially, without the Mac Studio price tag. But here's the cold, hard truth: hype always fades. The initial buzz wears off. And what you're left with is just a tool. A box. A piece of aluminum that either delivers on its promise or becomes a very expensive paperweight. For the last 6 months, I've put this machine through hell. Creative work, coding, heavy 4K video editing, relentless multitasking that would choke most desktops, and yes, even some gaming. Today, we're cutting through the noise. This isn't a launch review. This is the 6-month reality check. Is the M4 Mac Mini still the undisputed value champion? Or is it a case of M-series fatigue setting in? Stick around, because the answer, especially regarding the RAM decision, might surprise you. Let's start where 90% of us live, the daily grind. The web browsing, the email, the spreadsheets, the endless Zoom calls. On my old Intel Mac, this was the territory of the dreaded beach ball. A simple window resize could cause a microstutter. It was frustrating. With the M4, it's almost boring. And I mean that as the highest compliment. The Mac Mini doesn't just feel fast, it feels instant. Clicking an app icon isn't a request, it's a command. Safari opens before your finger leaves the trackpad. I can have 40 tabs open, a massive Photoshop file layered up, Spotify running, and a screen share happening, and the activity monitor just yawns back at me. But the real magic isn't the speed you get, it's the speed you don't lose. 6 months in, I've noticed zero degradation in basic performance. It's the same snappy responsiveness it had on day one. It's the kind of machine that gets out of your way so you can actually do your work. However, there's a flip side to this M-series perfection: the thermal design. Now, a fan is in there, of course, but for the first 5 months, I genuinely thought it was a myth. Silent. Totally silent. But then I hit a workflow that finally woke it up. And while it never gets hot, the one area where this little box starts to flex its muscles is under sustained, high-intensity loads. This leads us directly to the first major question you need to answer before you buy one. Okay, let's talk about the specs that actually matter. The M4 chip is a monster, no debate there. But the Mac Mini's Achilles heel, for many, is the unified memory. I opted for, insert your specific RAM configuration here, e.g., 16 GB or 24 GB, and I cannot stress this enough: do not cheap out on the RAM. Here's why: I edit 4K B-roll footage shot at 60 frames per second. That's a heavy lift. On my machine, I can have a 25-minute timeline open in Final Cut Pro, with color grading applied, titles, and background rendering happening, and the Mac Mini handles it with grace. It utilizes that unified memory so smartly that it often outperforms systems with double the dedicated RAM, just because of how quickly the CPU and GPU can share that data. But the moment you step into the world of virtual machines, demanding coding environments, or running multiple Adobe apps simultaneously, that's when you run out of runway. The system starts to rely on the SSD for swap memory, and while the M4's SSD is ludicrously fast, it's still slower than RAM. So, if you're a power user, the base 8GB Mac Mini is a brilliant machine. For someone else, for you, it's a bottleneck waiting to happen. Consider the RAM upgrade not an expense, but an insurance policy for your productivity over the next 5 years. And then there's the GPU. Look, this isn't a gaming PC. We know that. But the M4's integrated graphics are genuinely impressive. Games like, mention a specific game, e.g., Shadow of the Tomb Raider, are not only playable but enjoyable at decent settings. It has redefined what a mini desktop can do in the graphics department. It's a silent content creation powerhouse that can occasionally sneak in a round of a modern AAA title. The hardware is only half the story. The other half is what it's running, macOS. One of the Mac Mini's biggest, and often unstated, advantages is its place within the Apple ecosystem. Handoff works flawlessly. I can start writing an email on my iPhone and finish it on the Mac Mini instantly. AirDrop is a utility that I now take for granted, but it remains a game changer for sharing large files. But let's be critical about the external factor, the accessories. The Mac Mini forces you to bring your own monitor, keyboard, and mouse. And for me, this was a blessing. I've been able to curate the perfect setup. I mention a specific keyboard, e.g., mechanical keyboard, and mention a specific monitor, e.g., ultra-wide monitor, giving me the best components for my specific workflow, which you simply can't do with an iMac. However, the port selection is a point of contention. We state the number of ports, e.g., 4 Thunderbolt/USB 4 ports, which is solid, but if you run multiple drives, external displays, and peripherals, you will need a dock or a hub. And that's an extra cost and an extra cable. It's not a deal breaker, but it is an unavoidable consequence of its tiny footprint. What's held up the best in these 6 months? The single cable simplicity. Run one cable to the wall, one Thunderbolt cable to my monitor, which acts as a hub, and that's it. No cable spaghetti. The sheer joy of a clean, minimalist workspace, powered by a box that's barely noticeable, is something I truly underestimated. So, 6 months later, does the M4 Mac Mini still hold up? And more importantly, who should buy one right now? If you're coming from an older Intel Mac, this is a no-brainer upgrade. You will feel like you skipped a decade of computing. The leap in power efficiency and raw performance is astronomical. Your quality of life will improve overnight. If you're coming from an M1 or M2 Mac Mini, the decision is much tougher. The M4 is significantly faster, but the M1 and M2 were already so good that for the average user, the jump is simply not justifiable unless you are pushing the absolute limits of 4K video editing or complex machine learning. Wait for the M5. But for everyone else, the creators, the students, the multitaskers, the developers, the M4 Mac Mini is, in my opinion, the perfect sweet spot in the current Apple desktop lineup. It's a machine that gives you 90% of the Mac Studio performance for 50% of the price. The longevity is guaranteed. This machine is built to handle operating system updates and demanding applications for years to come. It has been the most reliable and most powerful desktop I have ever owned, and it has genuinely changed how I approach my work. It delivered on the hype, not with fireworks and fanfare, but with quiet, relentless performance. Now, if you're thinking about buying one, you have to answer the one critical question: how much internal storage do you truly need? Because as we've seen, RAM is crucial, but upgrading that internal SSD after the fact is impossible. Let me know in the comments below, what Mac Mini configuration are you running or planning to get?